Hello, today I am reviewing The Weapon Shops of Isha by A.E. van Vogt. It's proving a challenging one to review, I have to say. So this is one of my haul from my recent trip to the United Kingdom. Pretty sure this one came out of the Zardos warehouse, and I absolutely know that I squeaked with delight when I found it. Not because it's this gorgeous, gorgeous old school book, which it is, but because I've been looking for this book for quite some time. Now, I'm 99% certain that I did read this when I was young, maybe even a teenager. I feel like I didn't love it at the time, and so I didn't hang on to it, but I do have The Weapon Makers, which is the second in this series, and which I would like to read, and would have liked to read at these last decade or so-ish, kinda. But I wanted to read the first one first. I wanted to read them sequentially. This is one of the books that I was desperate enough to get that I might even have been willing to buy it online, only I couldn't find it even online. So I'm guessing it's a bit rare. I am absolutely certain that this particular edition is a little bit rare. You've got that beautiful Dali-esque cover with an outline of the background of the city, and you've got that image which I think is meant to be a very, very psychedelic type pistol. This is a Nova of novels and was 2 shillings. It is quite stunning. The pages are actually physically sewn on with thread. The paper is kind of rough but very pleasant and kind of toasty. The font was strangely delightful. Everything about it I loved. Now, this book claims to have been edition published in 1954 by Nova Publications in London, and it's just everything about it is delightful, and I've been trying to preserve it as much as possible. I've wrapped it in a silk scarf if I'm carrying it around, but I feel it probably isn't in quite as good a condition as it was when I bought it. Still pretty good condition though. It's older than I am. It's actually doing better than I am. Anyhow, so The Weapon Shops of Isha is a classic book. It's taken me a few days to read. It wasn't an easy read by any stretch of the imagination. It feels very 50s. The writing is descriptive and literary and quite dry. It feels like work to read this. More so than I would expect from Van Vogt. I think of Van Vogt as being a very readable author, but this one not so much. So we start with a prologue which is based in 1955. A weapons shop of Isha appears magically in a 1955 lot, and a policeman tries to get in but can't, but a reporter tries to get in and he can. McAllister finds himself in there, and there's a strange back and forth since neither of the two parties, neither him nor the person in the weapon shop, really know what the other are about or where they are. Where they are is from 2 different times. McAllister is from 55 and the weapon shop is from some other time. So you've got this prologue, and at page number 72 you've got an interlude that goes back to McAllister, and McAllister's stories does eventually blend in for the rest of the weapon shop stories. There are a number of stories happening at once. As an example of the dryness and the unnecessarily convoluted writing that Van Vogt indulges in, while McAllister is trying to figure out what's happening, he asks what date it is, what year it is, and his response is, this is 84 of the 4,700th year of the Imperial House of the Isha. Rightio. I had to write that down to figure it out. What he's actually saying is it's year 4,784 of Isha. We don't go around, if asked the date, saying it is the 2026th year of the Christian calendar by the Are we the Georgian calendar? I think we're the Georgian calendar of Rome. We don't do that. We say 2026. So 4,784 was sufficient But Van Vogt makes it difficult, is what I'm getting at. If you love this book and you want to get someone into science fiction who isn't into science fiction, no matter how much you love it, no matter how influential it was on you and your wee tucker, I don't think this is the book for them. This is the book for dedicated classic science fiction readers who like Golden Age style writing. Okay, so done with the prologue. We get stuck into a tiny village of Glay or something, and there's this guy called Frayne. I think his name's Frayne or Frame. A weapon shop of Isha has appeared. Frayne is violently patriotic to his Empress Inelda, and the weapon shop is in opposition to her, and the village has to go against it, and he's very combative. It doesn't work well for him. And that's where we learn that his son, in his early 20s, Cale, is a rebellious sort. He isn't pro-Empress. He refuses to work in his father's workshop. Bad boy son, and he becomes the protagonist essentially for the rest of the novel, or at least a main protagonist. Clay gets together with a girl from the weapon shop. I think her name is Sally Rowell, something Rowell. And next thing you know, he's asking his parents for money and heading off to the big city, to the Empire's capital city. Now, this is where I wasn't loving it. The themes here seem to me to be very much country hick goes to the town and is shafted out of all his money on the way by gamblers. It isn't a purely traditional way that happens, but it still happens. Then he gets to the city and he gets shafted again and again and some more. A few times the weapon shop girl, Miss Rowell, sort of gets him out of it, and we discover that the weapon shop are terribly interested in him because they scanned him while he was standing in the crowd, and he's got some calisthenic thing, high rating, that means that they're interested in him because of what his effect on the Empire is going to be. Now, the country hick goes to the big town is kind of naff and maybe a little bit embarrassing, and it gets worse once he gets there, because what he does is he takes the very minimal amount of money he has and he goes to a gambling house to get more money. Cliched and embarrassing. So he goes to this penny palace to make money, and we hear a lot about the gambling. At this point, A.E. Van Vogt is reminding me very much of a high school teacher I had who was teaching the reasoning and data level of maths for year 12 certification. He loved gambling. I don't know if he actually gambled, but he loved using gambling and probabilities to teach math, and Van Vogt seems to as well. I personally find gambling slightly more boring than scrubbing the bathroom tiles. I just don't like gambling. I've got no moral objection to it. I don't think it's deeply wrong or anything. I just find it's deeply boring. Some of the most boring moments of my life have been when I was in gambling establishments with friends. There is a gene that means you take your money and you throw it away into a one-armed bandit and have a great time. I lack that gene. And because of that, a large portion of the early weapon shops of Isha was boring to me, because while Van Vogt is describing these amazing futuristic games of gambling, it's still gambling and I am still bored. Anyhow, Cale wins a lot of money. Of course, the establishment always wins, and they win in this case by cheating him once again and shuffling him off to a palace of illusions or dreams or something. Sally Rowell goes in, I think it's Sally, I could be wrong, to try and extract him from there. And Van Vogt gives us this beautiful, fascinating picture of a futuristic pleasure house that is utterly corrupt and morally indefensible in many ways, because they're using essentially sex slaves are conscripted to do these things, and that's where Cale's been taken. The weapon shop girl Rowell fails to extricate him, and next thing we know, he is being press ganged off to, I think it was Mars, where he once again gets shafted, but finally doesn't get shafted and makes it back to Earth. At the same time, we've got this other story of Hedrock. Hedrock is a member of the Weapon Shops of Isha, and we're starting to learn more about the Weapon Shop of Isha, which is great because it took a while. He is apparently the oldest man on Earth, the only immortal man on Earth, and he actually established the weapon shops in the first place. Only no one knows that anymore, and he's just a normal weapon shop type person working there. He is behind the scenes, pushing for Cale Clark to get on with his destiny, pushing for the employee, Rel. It is Sally Rel? I hope it's Sally Rel. I could be wrong. Weapon shop girl. Come on, give her a name. Give her a name. Okay, the weapon shop girl. Pushing her. She's one of his subordinates to try and help Cale along. So that's interesting. Now, Cale's father gets shafted as well through his son and loses all his stuff. He goes to the weapon shop to get a weapon to commit suicide, essentially thinking that would be the best thing for his wife, etc. Instead of that, he gets shuffled into another portion of the weapon shops in which their legal department helps people that have no more help. So the weapon shops are far more than a place that just sell this amazing futuristic weapon that is keyed to a person, can only work defensively, all this other amazing stuff. It's far more than that. It's actually a last port of call hope for people for whom the empire isn't working. And so this book is actually establishing a very totalitarian regime which is very corrupt and has no fairness, and the weapon shop is the opponent to that, to give people a sense of hope and another way to fight back against corruption. Now, Cale's father does eventually get his stuff back through the assistance of the weapon shop. He is now converted. He no longer thinks that the Empress is the best thing on earth. He is pro-weapon shop now. Where that goes, I don't know. Maybe in the next one it'll go further. But meanwhile, we've got all these different threads coming together in a bit of a bind. It's pretty enjoyable from around the halfway mark. I struggled with the first half of the book. By the last third of the book, I was thoroughly invested and I was thoroughly enjoying it. By then, there was no more gambling, thank goodness, and the actual plots were coming together. The ending is very satisfying. The McAllister part of it especially, I thought was a bit brilliant, and I do now want to go on and read The Weapon Makers. Will I go on straight away? I'm tempted to. We'll see. We'll see. What else should I say about this? There's a lot to say about this. There's a lot more than I've mentioned. There's many more futuristic elements. There's a lot more complexity in the stories and how they come together. But I'm going to say a little bit more about the background of the story of itself as I read online, having finished that book. So, in July 1941, well ahead of the 50s publication this ended up being, Astounding Science Fiction magazine published Seesaw by A.E. Van Vogt, and that was apparently the beginning of the unfolding of the oppressive empire of Isha and the mysterious weapon shops. So the weapon shops of Isha includes the first 3 parts of the saga and introduces a whole heap of slogans and concepts that in 2026 have not aged well. But you have to consider when this came out, 41. So the slogan that goes throughout the weapons shops of Isha, the right to buy weapons is the right to be free, and that is a concept that is rather politically and socially loaded in many countries in the world in 2026. But since that came out of the height of the Nazi conquest, the Isha stories are meant to suggest that a totalitarian, oppressive government should never subjugate its citizens and could never subjugate its citizens if they were well armed. Now, whether you agree with that concept or not, and I know plenty of people that wouldn't, I think the weapon shops of Isha needs to be read in light of the fact that Nazi Germany was a big thing. And Van Vogt had his own very interesting family history that we're probably not going to go into right now, leading to the underlying themes. Now, the underlying theme here is that the weapon shops are standing in opposition of a totalitarian government. The totalitarian government isn't described as necessarily evil. The Empress Imelda, who becomes more of a character and a feature in the later part of the book, is not a bad person, and they are trying to make the government work better and be less corrupt. But the structure of the government is such that her ability to reduce that corruption is minimized. It's getting really dark, isn't it? Yes, I should probably finish this video first. Okay, so I like A.E. Van Vogt. I like his books overall. I usually like his writing. This is a bit dry. As I said, very, very much Golden Age style writing. Maybe not for everyone today. There's a dystopian element, and the socio-political science fiction element of it really suits me. But I would say there's even a noir element to it, perhaps. But it's not going to be for everyone. And if you want socio-political science fiction heavy commentary, then yes, it is probably for you. If you're trying to get a friend of yours into science fiction and they are not familiar with Golden Age science fiction, this may not be the one to try them on first. Very, very pleased that I found it. Delighted that I found such a beautiful edition. I will treasure it, and I may or may not go on to the next one straight away. We will see. Thank you for watching. Read good books. Maybe even read A.E. Van Vogt. A.E. Van Vogt is a good book. He really is. And this one in particular is a good book. But whichever one you read, just read good books. Bye.